Welcome back to Val Verde Broadcasting. Yes, we're back, believe it or not. Older, wiser, and fartier. My name is Duncan Casey. This is Rich Jackson. We are filmmakers and idiots, but we talk about films and we like films. Do you like films? We like films. We do. Yeah, because we work in them and everything. So that's kind of why we like to talk about stuff like this. Welcome to Val Verde Broadcasting. If this is your first time, please stick around, check out some other content, like, comment, and subscribe. Today we're going to talk about Terminator Zero, the anime series that dropped on Netflix. So after the intro, we'll get into talking about Terminator Zero SEO.
Val Verde Broadcasting, Val Verde Broadcasting, Michael Bean, Val Verde Broadcasting.
Right, so Terminator Zero. I've seen all of it. Richard's seen most of it.
I've seen half of it.
You've seen half of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologise, everyone. I apologise.
Full disclosure. We're not going to blag it.
So I'm not going to pretend. No.
Yeah. Well, shall we start? Here's a point I want to make actually off the jump because this occurred to me. We just did a review for Alien Romulus that's going to come out. We're doing a review for Terminator Zero. People whinge because all we talk about is Terminator, Alien, Predator. That's all they're making, is what I'd like to say. These are all new things. So I don't know. I don't shoot the messenger. Like, what the fuck?
And it gets clicks, guys. Don't tell you, it gets clicks. Yeah. So yeah,
sorry. We'll talk about some new wave thing that no one but you likes next week.
Next time.
But Richard, why don't you start? Because you've seen half of it. Why don't you give your sort of what your impressions of it first, and then we'll get into it.
So, I don't really tend to watch anime, and this is very an anime, because sometimes they call something an anime, but it's just like a Western animation that's been made by a Japanese studio or something. This is very an anime, and has a lot of conventions of that format, so it's not something I'm used to watching, which is fine. I enjoyed such things as, I think Timothy Oliphant as a Terminator, I think it's a really excellent choice. Like, I think if you wanted to go back to that Lance Henriksen guy in the crowd thing, be really good. I don't like how they animated him with like weird creepy eyes, because it's kind of like, well, that's a robot then. Because his character just walks around like this all the time, like with these weird goblin eyes, and it's like, well,
and
that's
they glow
robot,
red.
isn't it?
They so one of the things they introduce is that they glow red when he's doing like to Terminator search vision or something. That's why their eyes glow red.
We spotted them easy. Their eyes glowed red.
Yeah, I know. And it's like it's not much of an infiltration power, then, is it? If you have to make your eyes glow red to find someone.
Okay.
But anyway.
Okay. Fair enough. What I was planning to do was like, I'm going to watch like half of this now, and I'll watch the other half like tomorrow. But I was very uncompelled to do so, and it felt to me like a lot of muddy water, because they come in quite early doors and go like, no, we've created diverging timelines, and I just kind of go like, okay, because then we got to go through this again.
Yeah.
And it was all kind of a bit woolly and a bit unfocused, and I kind of felt like, oh, this competing AI, which is like a hologrammatic fairy that kind of like questions the guy's questions his life choices and stuff, and it was just like, all right. So for example, the competing robots and the kind of birth of robotics and stuff, I was like, okay, that's neat. And like the fact it's kind of before Judgment Day and that's going to happen. And, a Terminator with the voice of Timothy Oliphant is stalking children through the basement of a mall. I'm kind of like, yeah, this is very Terminator. This is cool. There's a bit of future war stuff. Some of the future war stuff is kind of like, oh yes, the prophet has foretold, and it's like, it's not Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's a fucking ground war against robots. That's the way I view it. Like, and when whichever of the million shit Terminator films called John Connor a prophet and stuff like that, it's not like leaning on the Christ thing so hard is so hack. And like, there's that old lady going like, oh, of course, well, we created a diverging timeline, which upon the third day, and I was like, no.
I thought they were going to maybe intimate that was Sarah Connor. But
right. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But again, the timeline, quote unquote, is so woolly and nonsensical. You could put anyone anywhere who's died or whatever, and it doesn't matter.
Put Elvis in it. Fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
Who cares? You know. So what did you? Played by Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah.
What was your mileage with it then? Because you watched it all.
I was sort of. I sat through it all. Yeah, I
sat through it.
Well, some of it I watched at the gym. Full disclosure, on my phone during cardio. Some of it, I watched at home on the big TV, and I thought it didn't need to be that long. I think like some of your complaints, I would also level at it. It's very Metal Gear Solid in that you're watching people debate with robots about stuff that's very not as highfalutin philosophy as you think it is, and it's all kind of like basically he's trying to work out whether he should turn his AI on or not, because did the AI actually cause Judgment Day, or could it prevent it? Or it's the whole there's no fate but what we make. Oh, is it is it our fate or is it not? And if I go back in time, have I actually changed anything? It's posited, I think, that basically they just create new realities every time they go back in time. They don't actually stop anything. It is very anime. Some of which is fine, some of which I think doesn't really belong, but it's just another way to look at it. It's far more interesting than yet another Terminator film. I'll give them that, and I think the Terminator stuff in it is really good. There's those sort of like servant robots that we'll remember from '97.
I like that the competing robots thing, because it's the Terminator universe, right? So we remember servant robots from '97 the same way we remember the nuclear war from '97. It's the same.
It's fair enough. Then there's a bit where I think it's towards the end where the Terminator ends up putting one of those it like reconfigures one of the robots and puts it on his like attaches it to his shoulder, and then it has one. What are those? Remember those old cables that computers used to have? Are like really flat. What are those called?
Oh, like a serial cable or parallel cable.
Ribbon cable or whatever.
Yeah, like you'd have your printer.
Yeah. He puts that in his mouth to connect to it and stuff. So he's walking around with this thing hanging out his mouth and a head on his shoulder, and that's kind of cool. And but it's like, I know, but again, it's this sort of like, why?
I mean, it's an anime, so you kind of go nuts with it, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of like the kind of leaden philosophical debate.
It culminates. I mean, do you care about spoilers on it?
Nah, fuck it.
It culminates with basically someone with their finger hovering over a button, and it's like, well, you're just saying war.
And does it several times? Does it leave it hanging or like?
No. But again, it's the thing that the guy doesn't know whether to put his AI online, and spoilers he does, and then but again, that's a very anime thing to do of like, oh, building up to this big thing, the big thing happens, but does it happen, or doesn't it happen, or would it happen? Should it? Could? Would? Don't know.
Doesn't it? Don't not unhappen.
Yeah, and it's just like, I was sat there going, but I thought, no, like what? It's just it muddles itself, but the things like they obviously reenact the. Did you see the police station bit?
No, I did not.
Oh, you can get to that.
Maybe I did. Go on. Oh, yeah, they restaged the kind of...
They kind of restaged the police station thing, yeah. And again, it's very inconsistent with Terminator's sort of... There's a few times when it gets someone and it's like, why haven't you just ripped their head off? And then there's other times where, like, when it goes to the police station, the disposable cops, it, like, destroys, like, and it's really brutal. When one of our protagonists gets near it, it's like...
I'm going to swat you into a wall.
Yeah, and it's like, what? Like she literally has a fist fight. The girl they sent, or the woman they sent back to save the kids, like has a fist fight with it. And it's like it kicks its leg, and it's like, it's made of metal. What the fuck?
I like that intro when she's being chased through the kind of silo by the Terminator. That was very Terminator. Good for you. Well done.
Yeah, no, they did some great stuff in it. I'm not. Obviously they mix a bit of CGI in there when you see just endoskeletons and stuff. That's fine, I guess. Inoffensive, I would say, ultimately, but also forgettable. I'm never going to sit down and go, do you know what I fancy watching again?
I was like, that's the problem. I think that's why I was uncompelled to watch the rest, and I just haven't had time to pick it up. So, like, I would love there to be a cool animated Terminator series that I could just rewatch, but unfortunately there isn't one of those. So
it reminds you know what? It reminds me of one of those sort of Elseworlds comics that Dark Horse used to do. It's a bit like the Terminator versus RoboCop thing.
For sure. Yeah,
and if you made that into an anime, it's kind of like, well, yeah, it wouldn't be great, but it'd be fun though, you know.
See, that RoboCop versus Terminator book, the Walt Simonson Frank Miller one, like. There was when I first read it, I loved it, and then I got a bit older and I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense, it's inconsistent with law. And then I come back to it later, a bit more grown up, and kind of like, nah, this is great. Like, it's so bonkers. Like, I'm here for the madness. Like, they've just... Those are two concepts that I think are fundamentally incompatible in terms of tone and execution. So Frank Miller went, fine, RoboCop's going to build an army of jetpack cyborgs and all this. Like, it just goes so mad. Yeah. And Walt Simonson's artwork is stunning. He's one of the most amazing American artists in my view. He's kind of got that French sensibility, but that's a different discussion. Stunning book. Make that into a cartoon with loads of cool voices. Go mad. I'd watch a 4-part, insane, lean into the bonkersness. Do that. And I don't know, maybe because what I didn't like about this is it was between two stools, and like, I would have loved a bonkers one. I would have loved a kind of haute tension, you know, highly mobile, kind of tense chase thing. But this grinds to a halt to talk about the philosophical implications of robot cats and stuff like that. And it was just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just sort of don't care, which is on me. You know,
it's one of those things. It's never going to upset me. I mean, at this point, it's kind of like, like whatever, just do whatever. I mean, I think again though, it doesn't. Whilst it talks about the sort of philosophical implications of the kind of what you're experiencing, it's kind of like, I don't know that really belongs in Terminator. It's always present, it's always there, but I think it's really left more to, you know, the whole point of, you know, the first two are great, the rest are shite. This, like, because they are framed at, you know, they're a chase movie, which enables you to, yes, dump exposition on the fly, but you can get rid of exposition very quickly. You know what I mean? You're like, you can stop expositing because you kind of like, as long as you explain, you know, that bit Terminator going like, it's an mimetic polyalloy, blah, 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 done. Don't need to know anymore. Like, wasn't become a bomb or something to get me done? It's all out of the way. Now you know the rules. You can watch it play out, and we don't need any more of that crap. Whereas when it's people sat around going like, oh, what if this and that and the other, and it's like, and people keep saying, I see it to this day. People going like, why don't you just give us the future war? It's like, that's boring. I mean, they tried it with Terminator Salvation. They didn't, like, arguably didn't actually do it, but it's not, you know, these are plot devices. Recognize them for what they are. It's like we've always said, like the Terminator, you know, much like zombies, sort of just represents impending death. If it gets you, you're done. None of this like, oh, and then they have a big fight. It's like, that's stupid. It's a Terminator. It's like, what? Like, what don't you get about it? You know,
I love Terminator 2, as do you. But it's a stretch.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, brilliant movie that I love and adore, but it is a stretch of the premise. And anything beyond that, you can just see you've stretched it till it's broken. So many people. We've now moved into cross media. There's been comics. There's been comics. There's been books. You know, whatever. There's been video games. But this is now we're into fucking animation. And it's just like, well, actually, there are multiple timelines. It's like, well, I don't care then, because there's a timeline where John Connor runs a successful bouncy castle hire business. Like, if you're just telling me there's I just go, well, I don't care, because like, what am I going to see next? Like, what mundanity can be ready next?
Yeah.
You know, like.
I mean, again, I've said this before on other stuff, so I won't belabor the point. But it's thematical consistency rather than, you know, logical consistency. Terminator 2 doesn't make sense when you pick it apart based on what's established in the first one, but it's thematically consistent. There's loads of subtext. There's a lot of it's about role reversal and parenthood, and now having seen it from a young age, to, you know, from being a kid to now being a parent, I get a lot of more even of the themes, you know, the stuff about the Terminator being a father. You know, there's that line in it where he says, aren't you afraid of dying? And he's like, I just have to remain functional till my programming is complete. It's kind of how you feel as a dad. You're like, I just need to get through this.
You of all people know now why we cry.
Yes, I do. I do. And it's something I do a lot. But yeah, it's it's wonderful for that. It's fantastic, and that's why we love it, and that's why we come back to it. That's what keeps it going, even if people don't articulate it in those terms, and people don't really realise that. There's that's why we love that film. That's why everything has weight. When events happen, you go shit. Whereas everything else is like, oh well, all bets are off because who cares? And like you say, as soon as you start saying, actually, that's Dark Fate's biggest problem. Is it's like, well, no, actually, that's not what happened. But we blew John Connor away, and it's like, well, I'm supposed to care about that, am I? Sarah was established as dead in Terminator 3. Now she's not. You blow John Connor's dick off, and now it's like...
Genesis's whole thing was like, we fucked the timeline up, and it's just like, okay.
Yes, sure did, because now I don't care about a damn thing.
I don't give a shit, so thanks.
I mean, Terminator Salvation proved it as well. It's just like, once you have the backdrop of the future war, like the apocalypse, it's like, well, this is a different thing. Because the whole point of that, to show the sort of flash-forward stuff in the originals was so you would get a sense of what they're trying to avoid. But that's it. Because ultimately, what is that? It's just fighting machines. It's like, well, that's great. What can we do with that?
Well, then you have to do maybe how the tiger got its spots. This is how John sent Kyle back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I said this before. I think the video game they made that video game in Terminator Resistance, which basically is that, and it tells its own story with original characters, and John Connor's in the background, and you don't really see him that very much, as it should be. That's really great. People are like, that should be the real Terminator 3. They should make a film of this. It's like, no. It's good because it's interactive and it's in a different medium. It's a very good computer game. Wouldn't necessarily make a good film. Like, it works well because it's a game. They're not the same. Apples aren't oranges. No one's ever going to realise this. I don't know why bother. But, it's a really excellent piece of Terminator media in a different medium.
Yeah.
So, I'm not as convinced. Because if you did a film about how they found how John Connor got his groove back or whatever which essentially sort of what Terminator Salvation kind of was. What are we doing with that? What's the point? That's exactly what Terminator Salvation was, really.
But it's the same thing with all these things. It's like the well is well and truly dry. It was the same thing with Alien Romulus. It's very much Prey did something interesting there, but I think that now what are you going to do next? Like, now it's in pirate times. It's like, that's not interesting. There's nothing about that's interesting. And it's the same thing with this. It's like but it's it there. You see, it's set in Japan, and we never went to Japan before, and it's like, yeah, but fundamentally, like, a Terminator's going to turn up, someone else is going to turn up to try and save them. You're going to do loads of freaking callbacks and references and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and then you're going to wank on about philosophy for several episodes that I really couldn't give a toss about, because it's a man in a room talking to a ghost or whatever. And then, you know what I mean? And then it is just...
You could have the same results if it was set in Dunstable.
You should have made it a two-part feature-length thing, like they kind of did with The Dark Knight Returns. Like, have it as a two-part thing, and it is just yet another... People come back in time and someone has to be saved, and the twist, if we have to put one in, could be that, I don't know, like that old lady was Sarah Connor, and she actually survived Judgment Day, but couldn't see John because, I don't know, because she got blown across the sea to wherever. And now she's teaching people in not feudal Japan, neo-feudal Japan, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
Well,
like, maybe that's something.
Okay, let's make a sequel to The Tortoise and the Hare. Right? It's like you like that's a perfectly complete story that serves as a metaphor and a warning, and you can interpret it in a number of different ways. But, and I've said variations of this before, I don't care about the hare's kids and how he met his wife in college, or like that the tortoise was traumatized by his time in the Korean War. No, you see, because check this out, a hare is faster than a tortoise, but what if a tortoise won? That's it. Like, a Terminator is faster than a waitress. What if the waitress won? We don't need more. Like, there's no, you can't spit. It's perfectly kind of formed. Unfortunately, it seems like there's more to it, and there's not. And on a long enough timeline, that seems to be proved over most things like Star Wars and whatever. Like,
I was going to do this as a separate video. We may as well tack it on here, because I think we've pretty much said all there is to say about this. James Cameron appears to be coming back to do more Terminator. I mean, he's been doing that for the last you know.
I would say he's threatened to do more Terminator films. Well, because his whole thing is like, yeah, I'm coming back, but we're throwing it all out because we need new characters. And it's like, that's your fault. You know,
you endorsed
partially.
the last two and produced the last
Well,
one.
produced
supposedly.
the last one, yeah. I mean, like, okay, like we could have told you that firstly, and secondly, you're the most successful director that's alive, or one of them. You know what I mean? If you want to put on box office receipts, pound for pound, if that's your way of viewing things, the most successful. You were the deadbeat dad on this for years. You made the wise. You know what John Carpenter did? Like, he did Halloween. And then they mandated that he write a second one, and he said, I'll write it and hand it off to someone else. He regrets writing it, and he never touched it really again until recently with these Halloween Kills things, where he's come back in a very soft touch way. But for the most part, he knew just to more or less leave it alone. And James Cameron's been off making Avatar. Like, I mean, I know each movie he makes takes 50,000 years, but then it's always the best-selling film of all time.
Yeah.
You know?
Although I still to this day, like, what's it called? The Way of Water, or whatever, keeps coming up on my Disney, like, go on. And I'm like, no.
Not in this lifetime, buddy.
No interest in that
chance.
film whatsoever.
James Cameron is a filmmaker that I revere deeply, and I have seen the first Avatar, and I don't think Avatar 2 is going to be bad. Like, I found the first Avatar was fine. It wasn't life-altering in the way that made people literally mental. But, you know, I've no interest in watching fucking Fern Gully 2 this time we're underwater. No. Like, what I thought was hilarious is, like, when they brought out the trailers for Avatar 2, it's just like, that was the trailer to Avatar 1, though.
Yeah, was that not in the first one?
You know, like, you get those fan trailers for, like, Terminator 3, and it's like, I don't think Terminator 3 is going to be reused footage from Terminator 2 in a TV series that got cancelled. Call me mad. With, like, a Comic Sans Terminator 3 at the end. I don't think...
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, boys, but there's something fishy about this official trailer that's on a channel with 4 subscribers.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, this is, I think, I don't know. Look, Cameron's nudging towards retirement. He's one of these people like Spielberg, like, filmmakers in his blood. He's going to want to do it for the rest of his days. He's threatening to make more Terminator films. I assume because I don't think James Cameron doesn't take directing a film lightly. Clearly, his process is glacial, and again, I do think he's a genius. Like, you never bet against, you know, like Brad introduced me to the phrase "never bet against Cameron," and he's right. I can't see him directing another one. I can see him producing more stuff, because I think him and Tim Miller kind of butted heads on Dark Fate, about what should happen and stuff. And there's certain things in there that apparently James Cameron mandated. I will say also, something that I've kind of got to grips with recently is, like, say what you like about the Deadpool films, but the first one's made by an action director in Tim Miller, and the other two are made by comedy directors. And, well, that's not fair. Like, Chad Stahelski did the second one, which is, I think it's him, one of the John Wick guys. But if you watch Tim Miller's Deadpool, it is a really fucking phenomenal action movie. The action scenes are fantastic. Now, I like Deadpool 2 and 3, but the action scenes are not covered in quite the same way. But it's Sean Levy doing the third one. That's a comedy director doing kind of, so it's more focused on the comedy, and it's just the way the tone of those has shifted, and there's nothing wrong with that. No. But watch the first Deadpool, that opening sequence, the way the action is handled. Like, Tim Miller is a fucking excellent action director. And you could tell his enthusiasm for Terminator. Like, and, you know, I can imagine if you're him being brought back to make Terminator 2 too, and you end up perhaps not getting on with James Cameron, maybe things are mandated, and that's what you end up making. It must be very, very frustrating. And is that what the next Terminator director is inheriting if they do something under the yoke of Cameron? I don't know. It seems really unlikely to me that he would direct it himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is, you know, like, you're looking as well, all these things that have come up, Terminator, Predator, Alien, the same old regurgitated shit. They started off as projects that, you know, like Terminator especially, was something that was a sink or swim moment for Cameron. He was given, you know, a minor budget to do this sort of B movie. He knew he was going to elevate the material, but no one else did. They were like, we're not really putting much behind this. We'll let, you know, Schwarzenegger jumping on board obviously helped, but it was mostly a cast of unknowns. You got some of his friends in, like Lance Henriksen and those kind of cats, and, you know, and it was like, let's get this thing done, you know, that had that that thing about it. It was like Stan Winston was making a name for himself at the time. Everyone on board was like, I'm going 110 because I want to make, I want to make this the best it can be because it's going to be, for me, it's a big opportunity. And the second one obviously had elements of that again, because it wasn't like, these are known quantities now, but not with this budget.
And it's
so
weirdly, that was a very, very megabucks independent film by definition. Which we said before, it's kind of not quite. It was a bit outside of the system, but also very much within it.
For sure. Yeah. But I mean, both times it was like there was that auteur level stuff going on, and it was kind of there was stewardship of it that meant that it was headed in a very clear direction. And then after that, it's all been sort of just commercially produced muck Terminator. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, there's nothing to any of it. It's all just like desperate. It's marketing ploys. It's not filmmaking. It just isn't filmmaking. I mean, yes, sure. There's loads of great action set pieces, and there's lots of very well realized special effects in most cases. But there's that's it. And I don't know what James Cameron can bring back to it. He put his name behind Genesis, then came out afterwards and went, not really. I didn't really mean it. And now on Dark Fate, he was supposed to be a producer, which seems to have been sitting in a room with Tim Miller and arguing. And then...
Well, I think my view on the Genesis thing is because that was the politics of working with the Ellisons, who kind of now have that. And it seems like they're buying Paramount as well, which is mad. But... he had to work with that. He was getting the rights back to some degree, but it seems like they still had some stewardship, so he had to keep them sweet. And him coming out and trashing Genesis would have fucked that, right? So he gave that kind of slightly obsequious, I am Reek kind of, I started seeing things I recognise. It's like, yeah, so did I. They all sucked. It's like, if you piss on my mum's grave, I'm going to recognise it as my mum's grave. So that's a bit extreme. I thought I'd grown past those kind of analogies, but I haven't, so... You're welcome. I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's a threat more than a promise. I think we should be very weary.
I just don't want another slate of films, scheduled for the next, 5 years where it's all just this stuff again and again and again and again. Because people are fed up with it. People don't, but they don't have choice. That's the problem, really. To look at box office receipts now is like such a misnomer. When someone says it made such and such in its opening weekend, firstly, what's really being, versus the vast bulk of films now come out on streaming. That's just a fact. Wolves, we were talking about earlier, misspelled, pluralized, or I don't know if it is. It should have an apostrophe after the F.
I think it's a joke about how they're both lone wolves. Each one of us is a lone wolf, but they won't combine as wolves because they refuse to work with each other. I thought was the joke of the title of that fucking weird film. Such a weird, it's so weird. How did that come out? Anyway.
But that's my point. It's like all that sort of stuff that's not ending up in theatres, and so to sort of talk about box office receipts now, I think is pointless, because the competition is lower, but B, it's also lower because it's all the same thing. It's
clinging to the old. People are clinging to the old ways, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're clinging to the old ways.
There seems to be no end in sight. I thought The Flash might have done all that but I mean, I guess there's just been too much in the pipeline to really know at this stage, but. Surely we must be getting to the end of this, have they not wrung that rag dry yet? I don't know. I guess time will tell. But, certainly Terminator Zero was, whilst I thought, held my attention for the most part throughout most of it, and I enjoyed it for the most part. It hasn't kept any hope alight in me. I mean, this is certainly not anywhere. It's in the milieu. It's probably around the sort of Dark Fate level for me. It's just sort of, it's fine, but it's not.
Tepid.
It's empty.
I'm sorry I didn't watch it. Everybody at home, sorry I didn't watch it, but Duncan has, and I told you my experience with it. I apologies, but there we are. That's how us felt about that terminating Zero.
Yeah. So there you go. Well, should we wrap up there? I think that's probably...
Let's wrap up there, I think.
The shizer. If this is your first time, obviously, well, it's a first time for everything. Was it good for you too? Please like, subscribe and all that rubbish, but also please stick around and check out some of our other stuff, because we've obviously done an awful lot on Terminator. If Terminator is your bag, baby, there's an awful lot of stuff here for that. There's an awful lot of stuff for other stuff too, believe it or not. Don't listen to what the comments tell you. There are other things, including threads and other such things. So please do go back and look at our back catalogue, because there's a lot there, and we put a lot of time and effort into it, and you better enjoy it.
This is why you can't have nice things.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, and hopefully it won't be so long, but obviously, we're both grown men with families and businesses and things to do, so we apologise.
We're 40. Look at our wrinkly faces. You've been with us so long. We've been together so long, you and I.
We have.
You and I, but also the internet has been with us.
That's
been
right.
a long time. It's been a long time.
10 years, actually.
10 years, yeah.
But there you go. So, yes, please do like and give us your thoughts below. Of course, we always like to see those, and we do try to get back to you if you leave a comment below. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Ugh.